You do not carry a loaded firearm. You do not kick down doors in the dead of night. If you are involved in a violent, kinetic hostage rescue, it means your operation has gone catastrophically wrong. You wear a bespoke suit. You carry a blank yellow legal pad, a black fountain pen, and a cheap, untraceable plastic burner phone. You are a private kidnap and ransom negotiator. You work in the absolute darkest, unregulated sector of the global economy. You are retained by a shadowy insurance syndicate in London to protect the human assets of Fortune 500 companies operating in the most destabilized corners of the earth. When a multi-millionaire CEO is violently abducted at gunpoint in a foreign country, the board of directors does not call the military. They do not call the local police. They call you. Your job is not to heroically rescue the victim. Your job is to strictly negotiate the purchase of stolen human inventory for the absolute lowest possible dollar amount. You are an actuary of human suffering, and you are about to negotiate the price of a human life, exactly like a cold, hostile corporate merger. Level 1. The corporate secret. It is 3 o'clock in the morning in London. Your encrypted pager vibrates on your nightstand. You have a new file. A 52-year-old American CEO has just been ambushed in Bogota, Colombia. His armored SUV was violently rammed by 2 stolen pickup trucks at a traffic light. His local security detail was shot twice through the windshield. The CEO was dragged into the back of a panel van with a black canvas bag zipped tightly over his head. Within 10 minutes, the corporate board makes a silent, encrypted phone call to London to activate their $50 million corporate K&R insurance policy. This is a multi-billion-dollar global shadow industry. But there is a terrifying, ironclad legal clause written into every single contract. The executive is legally forbidden from knowing the policy exists. If a local drug cartel discovers that a specific American hostage carries a guaranteed $50 million corporate bounty on his head, he becomes an instant walking ATM. He will be targeted immediately, and his ransom price will multiply by 10. You board a private jet heading to South America. During the 5-hour flight, you do not sleep. You race against a terrifying, mathematically proven metric known in the intelligence community as the 72-hour protocol. Statistics dictate that if a hostage negotiation is not structurally contained and mathematically stabilized within the first 3 days, the hostage's chance of surviving the ordeal plummets by a staggering 60%. Level 2. The environmental lockdown. You land in Bogota. You are driven in an unmarked armored vehicle directly to the victim's sprawling, highly secure suburban estate. You walk through the heavy wooden double doors. Standing in the grand foyer is the CEO's wife. She is utterly terrified, hyperventilating, and violently crying. She begs you to save her husband's life. She tells you that they have $10 million in liquid cash sitting in a joint bank account, and she is entirely willing to wire every single penny of it to the cartel right now if they just bring him home. You look this weeping, desperate woman dead in the eyes. Your face is entirely devoid of emotion, and you deliver the most ruthless, sociopathic reality check of her entire life. You strictly forbid her from touching her own money. If she pays the cartel's initial demand from her personal bank account, she breaks the golden rule of kidnap and ransom logistics. She will trigger a terrifying psychological phenomenon known as the double dip. If a cartel realizes a desperate family is willing to empty their own pockets within 24 hours, they will not release the hostage. They will simply take the $10 million, realize the family has incredibly deep pockets, cut off one of the executive's fingers, mail it to the house, and immediately demand $20 million more. To survive this, the family must pretend to be financially ruined. They must beg for pennies. You immediately execute a total environmental lockdown. You systematically walk through the mansion and physically confiscate every single cell phone, tablet, and laptop from the wife and her children. You lock the devices in a heavy steel safe. The cartel will inevitably attempt to bypass you by calling the wife's personal cell phone to terrorize her into a fast payment. You completely sever their ability to inflict emotional blackmail. You place a single cheap black burner phone in the exact center of the dining room table. This is now the only lifeline to the outside world. Level 3. Manufactured dominance. You cannot be the one who speaks directly to the kidnappers. If the cartel hears a cold, calculating American negotiator on the phone, they will instantly realize the family is backed by a billion-dollar London insurance syndicate. Instead, you select a communicator. You choose the CEO's brother, a man who is emotional enough to sound authentic, but stable enough to follow your exact terrifying script. Suddenly, the cheap plastic phone on the table violently vibrates. The caller ID is intentionally blocked. The brother lunges across the table, desperately reaching for the phone to hear his brother's voice. Your hand shoots out. You violently grab his wrist, physically stopping him. You look at him with absolute chilling calmness. You let it ring, and ring, and ring. You let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, the phone rings again. Once again, you completely ignore it. This is the psychological foundation of negotiation dominance. The kidnappers are high on adrenaline. They believe they control the entire situation because they hold the biological asset. By refusing to answer their first 3 phone calls, you violently shatter their perceived power. You signal to them that you are not panicked, you are not desperate, and you are operating strictly on your own timeline. 10 minutes later, the phone rings for the 4th time. You finally nod at the brother. It is time to answer. You have instructed him not to say hello. He picks up the receiver and waits in dead silence for the cartel to speak first. In high-stakes negotiation, the first person to speak surrenders psychological power. A distorted, aggressive voice comes through the speaker, speaking rapid, heavily accented Spanish. The voice demands 15 million American dollars by midnight, or the executive will be decapitated on camera. You do not flinch. Your heart rate remains at a calm, resting 60 beats per minute. You write a single sentence on the yellow legal pad and slide it across the table to the brother. Level 4. The proof of life matrix. You never, under any circumstances, negotiate for a ghost. In 30% of global kidnappings, the victim is accidentally killed during the initial violent abduction. The cartel will still attempt to negotiate a massive ransom using a decaying corpse. Before a single dollar is ever discussed, you must establish an ironclad proof of life. You cannot ask to speak to the victim on the phone. The kidnappers will simply hold a gun to his head and force him to read a fabricated script. You cannot ask a generic security question like the name of a first pet or a mother's maiden name. That data is easily extracted by violently beating the hostage or by searching his stolen wallet. The question must be deeply abstract and physically verifiable. The brother reads your script in a shaking voice. He asks the kidnapper, "What is the specific medical serial number engraved on the titanium surgical pin inside his left knee?" The kidnapper screams curses at the brother, threatening extreme violence for playing games. You immediately press the disconnect button. You intentionally hang up the phone on an armed cartel leader holding a knife to your client's throat. You know the cartel boss is furious, but you also know he now has to walk down a dark hallway, step into a concrete basement, and physically examine the hostage's knee. You have just forced an armed psychopathic criminal to follow your direct orders. 20 minutes later, the phone rings again. The kidnapper grunts the exact serial number. You have your proof of life. The executive is currently breathing. The financial transaction has officially begun. Level 5. The anchor bid. The kidnapper repeats his absolute non-negotiable demand of $15 million. If you meet them in the middle and offer $7.5 million, you have already lost. In behavioral economics, the first number spoken becomes the anchor. It sets the psychological ceiling of the entire transaction. The cartel knows they will never actually get $15 million. It is an absurd, fictional number designed to make a $5 million counteroffer feel like a massive victory for the insurance company. You completely ignore their anchor. You slide a new piece of paper to the brother. You instruct him to speak in a strained, defeated, and deeply apologetic tone. The brother tells the kidnapper that the family's assets are entirely frozen by federal tax authorities. He states, almost crying, that the family has completely drained their savings, borrowed from friends, and maxed out their credit lines. The brother offers them a counterproposal of exactly $65,000. The response is explosive. The cartel leader screams in pure, unadulterated rage. He tells the brother that $65,000 is an insult to their entire organization. He states that he spends more than $65,000 just paying weekly bribes to the local police. There is a moment of heavy, dead silence on the line. Suddenly, you hear the terrifying metallic click of a heavy handgun slide racking backward. You hear the muffled, agonizing screams of the executive in the background. The kidnapper presses the barrel of the gun directly to the phone's microphone. "Listen to me very closely," the voice says. "If you insult me again, I am going to blow his brains all over the floor." The brother drops the phone. The wife screams in horror, collapsing onto the floor. Level 6, the biological inventory. You calmly pick up the disconnected phone and place it back on the receiver. You look at the terrified family and you explain the brutal, hidden reality of the underworld economy. The kidnappers do not actually want to kill the CEO. To a highly organized cartel, a dead hostage is absolutely worthless. In fact, a dead hostage is a massive logistical liability. Executing a high-profile American CEO brings the full, violent weight of the military and American intelligence agencies crashing down on their jungle operations. The executive is a piece of inventory. The cartel invested time, money, bullets, and manpower to acquire him. They are running a business, and they desperately need a return on their investment. If you offer them $0, they will kill him out of principle to maintain their terrifying reputation. But if you offer them a low, insulting sum, their sheer greed will force them to keep him alive to negotiate for more. You are not trying to save his life today. You are buying time. Level 7, the trench war. Over the next 7 days, you engage in a brutal, microscopic trench war of numbers. You incrementally raise your offer by agonizingly small margins. The cartel demands $400,000. You authorize the brother to offer $68,000. They demand $300,000. You offer $72,000. You are intentionally exhausting their psychological endurance. You are making them fight a bitter, exhausting war for every single penny until they simply want the nightmare to be over. You are weaponizing the cartel's own operational budget against them. Every single day they hold the executive, they must pay a team of heavily armed guards. They must purchase untraceable food and water. They have to constantly move the hostage between safe houses to avoid military helicopter patrols. Every hour that passes increases their financial costs and their risk of being raided. Finally, on day 8 of the abduction, the mathematical equilibrium is reached. The cartel is exhausted, paranoid, and bleeding cash. They agree to release the executive for a final, non-negotiable price of $215,000. The verbal negotiation is over, but the most mathematically dangerous phase of the entire operation is just beginning. You have to physically move the cash. Level 8, the logistics of currency. Moving physical currency through a hostile, militarized narco state is a logistical nightmare. In Hollywood movies, ransoms are paid in massive, neat metal briefcases filled with crisp $100 bills. In reality, the cartel explicitly demands used, non-sequential $20 bills. $100 bills are too difficult to launder in a third-world economy, and sequential serial numbers will instantly trigger federal banking algorithms the moment the cartel tries to deposit them. The physics of cash are heavily restrictive. $1 million in $20 bills weighs exactly 110 pounds. It is physically impossible for a single man to carry that much paper through the dense jungle. Your agreed ransom of $215,000 weighs exactly 24 pounds. You oversee the withdrawal from a highly secure private bank in Bogota. The cash is vacuum-sealed in heavy industrial plastic to protect it from the extreme humidity of the jungle. It is then placed inside a nondescript dull gray canvas duffel bag. You do not place a GPS tracker inside the bag. You do not place an exploding dye pack inside the money. You do not coordinate a tactical ambush with local law enforcement. If the cartel discovers a single piece of tracking technology during the exchange, the hostage will receive a bullet to the back of the head and the courier will be instantly executed. You are operating entirely on the dark, unspoken honor system of the criminal underworld. Level 9. The Ghost Courier. You do not make the drop yourself. You are a mathematician, not a martyr. You contract a highly specialized local operative, known as a cleaner. The cleaner is a ghost. He is a man with no official identity, who possesses deep historical ties to the local guerrilla factions and absolute geographical mastery of the Colombian jungle terrain. At exactly 2 o'clock in the morning, the cleaner drives a battered, unregistered pickup truck into a heavily forested, unmarked dirt road 3 hours outside of the city. He drives entirely without headlights, using military-grade night vision goggles to navigate the pitch-black, treacherous terrain. He arrives at the precise GPS coordinates dictated by the cartel. He places the heavy gray duffel bag onto the wet mud next to a rusted mile marker sign. He does not wait to see who picks it up. He immediately turns his truck around, drives exactly 5 miles back down the road, parks in the shadows, and waits. For the next 3 hours, you sit in the sterile dining room of the suburban estate, staring at the silent recording deck. This is the absolute peak of operational vulnerability. The cartel now has the physical money. They have absolutely no financial incentive to return the executive. They could easily execute him and disappear into the mountains. The only thing keeping the man alive right now is the cartel's future business model. Kidnapping is a long-term corporate strategy for these syndicates. If they start executing hostages after being paid, the global insurance syndicates in London will permanently stop negotiating with them. It would instantly destroy a multi-million-dollar revenue stream. The cartels are literally forced to be honest businessmen in a highly illegal, violent market. Level 10. The Actuary of Suffering. At exactly 5:45 a.m., the landline phone finally rings. The cartel gives you a set of secondary GPS coordinates. The cleaner drives his truck to a remote, abandoned gas station on the edge of the provincial highway. Standing in the freezing morning rain, entirely alone, is the American CEO. He is physically emaciated, covered in severe insect bites, and suffering from acute dehydration. He is violently shivering, clutching a filthy, oversized t-shirt to his chest. The cleaner quietly opens the passenger door. The executive collapses into the seat, sobbing uncontrollably. The physical extraction is officially complete. The biological asset has been successfully recovered. Hours later, the executive is escorted back into the secure suburban compound. You stand quietly in the corner of the living room, watching the weeping wife collapse into her husband's arms. The children are crying, burying their faces in his chest. It is a profoundly beautiful, deeply emotional display of human love and resilience. You feel absolutely nothing. You are turning a passionate, terrifying family crisis back into a cold, boring, bureaucratic business transaction. You do not celebrate. You do not smile. You quietly pack your encrypted laptop and your sterile paperwork into your black leather briefcase. You do not say goodbye to the family. They will never know your real name. They will likely spend the rest of their lives hating you for the absolute sociopathic coldness you displayed during the darkest week of their existence. They will never understand that your total lack of empathy was the exact mathematical shield that kept the man alive. You are driven back to the Bogota International Airport in the back of an armored SUV. You board a first-class flight back to London. You open your laptop, connect to a highly encrypted corporate server, and officially close the K&R file. You type in the final financial figures, updating the actuarial tables for the insurance syndicate so they can mathematically adjust their premium rates for the next fiscal quarter. You look out the airplane window at the dark, cold expanse of the Atlantic Ocean below. You are a phantom. You exist in the terrifying, invisible space between human tragedy and corporate liability. To the world, human life is priceless, defined by love, memories, and infinite emotional value. But to you, it will always be a cold, hard number on a balance sheet. You close your eyes and try to sleep, waiting for the pager to ring again.